plastic surgeons die, I guess.
Yeah. Did you have any problems with her as far as her dialogue?
No.
No? I mean,
No.
I guess today you've got to be careful.
She was very tame. Well, I think she was actually a sweet woman.
Oh, I'm sure she is
in
real life.
She actually was very nice, and there was none of that rough edge that that's part of her persona.
Yeah.
So, how did you choose to become a writer and a reviewer and so forth? It's what was your background to do this? Or were you just like Louise Morgan, were just thrown into it?
Those days you could be thrown into something.
True.
I wanted to write. I'd been doing volunteer work, mostly PR stuff for various nonprofit organizations, including David Wheeler's Theater Company in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
And
so when I decided I wanted to earn a salary. I'd done that. I'd been with the volunteers, and so I said to my husband, I'm going to go out and get myself a job, and I went to a personnel agency, and they sent me to insurance offices, and I said, I can't be in a building and an office all day long. That's not the way my life has been. So then I said, I'm going to go get the job I want. So I went into the Ledger one day, and I thought, the Patriot Ledger, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be a cover town meeting or something, really the bottom of the barrel.
Write the obits.
Oh my God! I walked in there, and they said, well, the position is opening up on the features desk. They're going to need an assistant editor. I thought, oh, really? and your job's going to entail covering film and theater and movie stars.
Wow.
And really? So I came home and I said to my husband, forget it, I'm not going to get this job because it's too good to be true. And of course, I've always written. That's always been my thing. So, and I had a literature background, so that helped in those days. I don't know if it does anymore. Anyway, so after about a month of bothering the executive editor there, I finally got the job, and I was so dumb, of course, I didn't realize. Here I was assistant editor, which meant I did a lot of the copy editing and what have you. And then I got a chance to review a play. And in those days, you came home at 11 o'clock, you sat at your typewriter, you wrote out the review, then you put it in an envelope, put it in the mailbox, and somebody from dispatch would come around 3 in the morning and pick it up and bring it back to the paper. And I didn't realize that, I could sleep in the next morning, and I didn't get to bed till about 4 o'clock, and went in there at 8 in the morning, and my editor never bothered telling me. Somebody else said, when you work overnight, you don't have to come in first thing in the morning. So, it's a learning curve. But I will say this, I could never have gotten a job like that today.
No.
You would have to have gone to a good journalism school. And had real background in covering this kind of thing. So I did. I just fell into it and learned on the job. And of course, it's been wonderful.
And that's the best way, really, because you get all that experience.
Well, you get that experience. You make mistakes, and and writing for newspapers is a whole different style than writing, say, a novel or something.
Exactly.
It's a whole different
or
kind
television
of language.
or radio.
Or this,
everything has its own discipline.
Exactly.
That you've got to learn and do. But it was.
But you were so fortunate. I mean, today you couldn't walk in like that. You'd as you said, you'd have to go to a good journalism school.
But I have to tell you something. The predecessors on the publisher of the Ledger, named Prescott Lowe, he wanted a good arts page. Yeah. And he hired a fellow by the name of Bora Berman. And in the early days, when I first moved down to the South Shore and was subscribing to the Ledger, he was the best reviewer in town. And
really?
The Globe had some big names.
Yeah.
And but he was as good as anybody on the New York Times.
No kidding.
He died young from...
as good as Elliot Norton?
Well, Elliot was not so much a stylist. Elliot was a very smart guy.
Well, he was unique.
Yeah. He'd been a police reporter, He didn't
details.
But Bora Berman was a writer, and so that was a little different. Elliot came from the news side, and it was the facts man. And of course, everybody knows that he was he was a fabulous critic because he
yeah.
understood, and he would,
Right.
the stories about him
constructive
going in and
criticism,
Neil
yeah.
Simon saying, "What's
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
the second act?"
Yeah, bringing the two sisters.
Yeah,
bring them back.
exactly. So, no, I've had, the people I've interviewed over the years, I remember we were talking about Candor and Ebb earlier, and I remember at the Colonial, they had that wonderful ladies' room.
Yes.
And
yeah.
there was always a piano in there.
Right.
And people would actually compose on the piano, and they were.
Yeah.
And I forget which show that they were doing, but they were there composing on that piano, and you realize, I'm here, I'm in the middle of it. And how lucky I was to do
history.
that. Yeah.
Richard Rogers wrote in that room.
Oh, yeah, they
a
and
lot of them
played that
did.
Oklahoma.
Oh,
out
I
there,
think, and, all the Rogers and Hart.
yeah.
Probably Hart was in that
history
room.
in that room.
Because Boston was the tryout town,
right.
that and New
That's
Haven,
right.
and I guess Philadelphia once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's all changed.
And a lot of the Broadway shows, the shows that went to Broadway, and some that didn't, came to Boston so Elliot could review them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he gave suggestions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was right on. He knew. He could see where the missing pieces were.
Speaking of Elliot Norton, were you on the awards, the Elliot Norton Awards Committee?
No, because my editor.
You were president of something.
Yeah, the Film Critics Society.
Oh, the Film Critics. Okay, yeah, Film and Stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that.
Did that encompass all the critics in the Boston area? Or
yes,
further
it was
out?
supposed to be mainly Boston. It branched out a little bit to the suburbs, and I was the first one that they brought in from the outside. I enjoyed that tremendously. I think Boston has a very smart film press. And then a lot of them have gone on to, Janet Maslin on to the New York Times.
Yeah.
So people have, gone on to bigger and better from here. So you've got a very good, that's one of the reasons why shows like to come here.
Yeah.
They know they have a knowledgeable audience. And I know that when I first, began reviewing, what we missed so much here was not having, I mentioned the Theater Company of Boston, but we didn't have regional theaters for a long, long time, strong regional theaters.
Yeah.
And now we have two of the best in the country, the Huntington and the American Repertory Theater.
Yes, yeah.
So we're just very lucky around here.
One of the things I've told my children who didn't follow in my footsteps, why should they? Yeah, well, anyway, is how lucky, and you just said it, how lucky I feel I have been, because I never made the mistake that a lot of television and radio people have done, and that is put themselves on the same level as the performer.
Oh, no.
They think that they're a star. There are only two stars from Boston ever. Julia Childs and Arthur Fiedler.
Oh, how about Ruth Gordon? How about Ruth Gordon?
But I'm talking about the television area, radio area. But however, Ruth Gordon, of course, Billy DeWolf.
Yeah.
And Betty Davis. I mean, we could go on.
We go on and on. But the point is, I've always admired these people, and it shows up in your reviews.
Yeah.
When you talk to them and so forth.
Oh, well, that's why I think I get some pretty good interviews, because I go in and, first of all, I'm not interested in interviewing somebody I don't admire, so I go in there already prepared to like them, and they sense that. And you get very good feedback. You think because these people have achieved so much that nothing would bother them, that their egos are unshatterable, and that's just the opposite. They're very insecure people. They need reinforcement all the time, and I'm just so happy to be able to give that to them.
Yeah, think how lucky we've been, the people that we've met, though.
Oh, yeah.
Most people wouldn't ever have the opportunity.
Well, exactly. That's it. I would never have had the opportunity to talk to people like this. One of the people I can mention is Peter Sellers, whom I met while he was still at Harvard. And I remember my first interview with him. He is
Which Peter Sellers you talking about now?
Peter Sellers is the opera director.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where this was going.
Not the comedian, no.
Okay.
And he's definitely homegrown.
Yeah.
So's Jack Lemmon.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Peter would just he'd sit there and talk to you, and and every time he's around, I try to get an interview with him. I said, interviewing you, Peter, is like a course in college. I learned so much, and I saw him through his early opera days, puppetry at the that he did various installations, places like at the old ICA. He did an installation there. And then when he came in and did opera, he tried to start an opera company here, but you could never start an opera company here from the top. You had to do it grassroots the way the lyric opera has. And I think that's a first-rate company. It's not the Met, but so what? They were all beginning young singers, and it's wonderful for them.
And sometimes they have more oomph anyway.
Oh, yeah.
They're
beautiful productions, and some of the things they put on, people say, well, they're the chestnuts. Well, the chestnuts are chestnuts because people love them, and most people don't have the kind of background in opera anyway, so you've got to start out somewhere.
Yeah. Of all the different media, theater, movies, opera, what would you say was your favorite?
Well, theater.
Theater, really?
Because theater, you're part of what's going on.
Yeah.
You sit there and the production you're watching, the performance you're watching, has never been done before. It's different.
Right.
It's unique that night because you're a different audience. And when you share something like that, the thrill of, I remember a British production of As You Like It. And it was just brilliant. And there were trapezes on the stage and big swings and all kinds of things going on. And I was reviewing. But I got up and I applauded. I was so thrilled with that production. I think it was a Royal Shakespeare production. I was just blown away, and what a thrill that was, because you are sharing this with the and movies are wonderful, and I love movies. But movies are a different thing. It's a much more intimate. You don't share movies with the rest of the audience.
You can't.
Theater, you share with the whole audience and with what's going on up on the stage.
A good example of that is the motion picture and the stage production of A Chorus Line.
Oh, yes.
One was a bomb and the other one was a hit.
Chorus Line, I love. And I always felt I could get up there. I could do that. I can do that. You know, one of the songs in the show.
Well, it's contagious.
It is. You said, those kids can do a little tapping around the stage.
Yeah, sure.
And it was brilliant because it showed what the life of a hoofer was. And you look at these musicals. The American musical has come back because these kids, they're triple threats. They can act, they can sing, they can dance.
That's right.
They have to be, like the Tits and Ass song. They get themselves together.
Yeah, you have to know everything today.
Yeah.
It's like the English theater. They've always been that way.
Yeah, well, because, they always had this wonderful, because England's such a small country, and they traveled all over the countryside, and to get into the West End, well, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But they were always performing. And
I remember a few years ago, production of Oklahoma came back, and the stars, the leads, knew how to dance, and they did when they did the dream sequence, they did it.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
that's nice. That's nice.
They knew. I mean, they danced it. And,
and
so forth. But it's been a lot of fun, and it still is.
It has been. Well,
theater is wonderful. As I said, I'm looking forward tonight to seeing rock and roll.
And I'll see you there.
At the Huntington
Did your
Theater.
husband go with you, or did he go with you in the past?
Oh, yes, he did.
Yeah, in the past,
He did. He was good about that.
Good, we got 2 seats, huh?
Connie, it's been so wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Just ask me.
Okay,
now that I know my way.
All right. Our guest today has been Connie Gorfinkle. You all know her, one of the best. She wrote for the Patriot Ledger for 30 years. Count them, 30 years.
Please.
And everyone was, I can't say enough about her.
No, thank you.
Well, that's our show for this time.